Alright, Chevra, let's learn Lashtikkel, Kedushas Levi. I'm just putting the Gemara over where I'm up to before we do that. So that's just why you might see something else. Anyway, we go to more Chassidus, as we would say. I want to learn from Parshas Parah. It's something very similar to what we learned last night from the Noimo Melech. They still the Yortz of the Rebbe Melech. Livor Masha Kosev Kehelis. So it's very famous in Kehelis, in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 7, verse 23. It says, Amarti ech kama v'rechoika mimeni. So King Solomon says, I said I will be wise, but it was far away from me. So there's a whole story of how Shlomo Melech himself said, it's so far away from me, I can't understand this mitzvah. What reason could there be for the mitzvah of the parah aduma? What's this person doing? What are you doing? So anyway, but the truth is, alright, so he could have turned earlier. There really is a reason behind this mitzvah, right? Like we said from Rabbi Moshe Darshan, the Rashi brings, Tova imay v'schap el bana. The mother should come and atone for the son. Ayin Sham, see there. V'yid tzoref l'zeh derei paitin. Also, we have it's a minig to say putim, to say yoitzris on Parshas Parah and the Dalet Parshas and other times. And Ashidvarav Heima Baruch HaKodesh. And the Riyah Kodesh says that the words that brought in these yoitzris, they're said by divine inspiration, the spirit of holiness. So it says, Sha'amar l'taher tameim l'tamei taharim ba'omer kodesh. I remember it told us Avram Yitzchak, maybe told us Aaron also. I used to go to both when I was a bacher. They had a nigun for this by the Tish Friday night. L'taher tameim l'tamei taharim l'taher tameim l'tamei taharim be'omer kodesh. They would sing it for a long time. Anyway, so it says, what does it mean? L'taher tameim, to purify the impure ones. L'tamei taharim, to purify the pure, to contaminate the pure ones. Ba'omer kodesh, when he says holy. Ba'omer kodesh, that's part of the liturgy usually of the yoitzris, because this is the yoitzris before kedusha. That's what it says ba'omer kodesh. He says holy before we say the blessing with the holiness, with the Kadosh, 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 holy, holy, holy is Lord of hosts. The Chol Zed Tzorch B'yer. So the Heilige Berditcher V'Rav, Chussi Goyim, Al Kol Yisrael Amen. He says all this needs to be explained. Ma Inyan Oimer B'Oimer Kadosh. Be a Sporian Parah. Why does it says when he says holy, and what does that have to do with the red heifer? The Hine, behold. We know what the prophet Elijah taught us. It's brought in the Zohar, Tikunei Zohar. The Antu Chad v'lei b'chushman, Antu al kol iloin, Sesima al lechol sesimin, leis b'chshova tefisa b'ch klal. That you are one, and not in a number, meaning we say to God, this is a prayer that Elijah the prophet said to God. He said, you are one, but not in the sense of a number one. Meaning, not in the sense of like, there's 1, 2, 3. The unity of God is different than that type of one. It's a total unity that can't be counted because it fills all worlds, it surrounds all worlds. What does it mean? So he explains it. That you are above everything, you're higher than anything, and you're more hidden than anything, and no thought can grasp you at all. So the Devarav Zachar L'Toiv, Haim Dibru Mishal Olam. These words that Elijah the prophet revealed to us in the Tikkunei Zohar, in the Hakdamah to Tikkunei Zohar, and we say it before davening. This is something that stands. These are words that stand at the height of the world. Yesod Kol Yesod is the most fundamental concept of all foundations. Amuda Oivdim, and it's the pillar of all of those who worship God. L'hoyer, to illuminate, l'hoyer, and to arouse and awaken, as Leiv B'nei Adam, the human hearts. Lidrois as Hashem Yisbarach Chol Libo V'nafshay, to seek out the blessed Lord with all your heart and all your soul, with all his heart and all his soul. Hu al Shnei Drachim. So this concept has two paths. Echod, the first thing, al Isgalus Alakusa Yisbarach, with the revelation of God's blessed godliness, right? Al Kol Partei HaNivroim V'Yitzurim, over all the details of all creatures and all formations, everything that God created and everything that God formed, and everything that God does, everything that is created, everything that is formed, everything that's done, and everything that exists in the world, everything comes from God, and there's nothing that really exists other than Him in the essential manner other than God. And without God, there is no existence of anything, of all the creatures. No creation could exist without without God. Kamosha Kosov, this isn't just a Kabbalistic idea, this is a biblical idea. We derive it, and this is something we say liturgically, in Nehemiah chapter 9, verse 4. V'atem echayes kulam, and you give life to everything. Mitzadzeh, and from this side, we know that there is a master of all the worlds, who renews everything at every moment. And He gives power to live to every creature in the world. And for this reason, Nikra Ato. This is why we can refer to God as thou, as you. You know, what wasn't it? Buber wrote a book, I and Thou, right? On theology. So, how is it that we're even able to refer to God in that sense of ato, of thou, of you, to refer to God in the second person, when God's personage is so transcendent? So, because if you're going to call God you, thou, even you want to be very respectful and say thou, right? It's the same in Hebrew. There's no difference in Hebrew between you and thou. Just some translators like to use thou, even when they'll use you for people, but they'll always use thou for God, because it's like in Spanish they have usted, but it's an idea. It's almost like understanding God. Like if you can say you to God, you can say ato, you can say thou. How does it exist? How does that happen? It's almost as if we're saying that we can understand what God is, and if we're going to use that thou, how is it? it's rather presumptive. I saw someone in the prison today. Name was it wasn't spelled exactly the same. It was Livingstone, and I said, that's very very presumptive for there to be a Livingston. So anyway, I presume. In any event, Achein kasher yispoinen Adam yada the eich godlo gedoyle v'tzumah moed ad shebilti efshari lahasig. But when you get to the point of knowing God and so forth, you can come to a point where you see that He is unknowable. He is so transcendent. That's my... Right? There we go. Okay, I was wondering what it is. I should pull up, though, because I think it's polite to do that. So we're talking to God in the sense of Ator, the second person, that we as if we understand Him, which we don't, but then you get to the point where you realize you don't really understand Him. Unless God gives you a gift of understanding God, there's no way to understand God. It says in the book of Exodus, chapter 36, verse 20, that no man can see me and live. But this is something that we know very clearly, right? The one thing we know is that everything is from God. And He fulfills them, He keeps them in existence, the whole creation. With this concept of godliness, the human mind cannot grasp this concept that we're discussing here of God's essence of theology. The leis machshava tfisa b'chlal, because like we said from the Pesach Eliyot, that no thought can grasp God at all. So from this side, Yisrael boy milos who, because that's what you say. Remember, it said Ata hu, you are He, meaning now we switch from the second person of Ata, of you or thou, until we get to the third person, who. Kihunister, because God is hidden. And I'm saying second or third person in the linguistic, in the grammatical sense, not in any theological sense, of course, chas v'sholom. God forbid. Because the way people live is that when you're talking to someone, you're looking at them, you say ato. You use the second person, right? You say you. Or in the South, sometimes we say you all or ya all, right? And then, but when you say the third person, who, which is he, which sounds like an Abbott and Costello routine, that who is he and he is she. Anyway, I'm just going to let this guy go because I'm a little nervous. I'll go behind him. So anyway, the when you talk in the second person, that's like you know who you're talking to, because you're looking right at them, right? But if they are I got the right away because I got that green light, the turn light. Anyway, that seems to indicate that you understand who you're talking about. But if you're talking about someone who's hidden, someone who's not right in front of you, Yadaber who, then you're going to say who, which is he, the third person. Marshu Godol Misichloi. And this idea of referring to God in the third person, again, I know people get obsessed with the gender of who rather than he, but really it would, in English, because that's only because in Hebrew, meaning he or instead of she, that's only because in English we have the neutral of it. In Hebrew there is no neutral. It is also who or he. So just because it's grammatically masculine, it doesn't indicate an actual biological gender in God, of course not. And it would be just as appropriate to translate who as it here. So, which is even more hidden in a certain sense. In fact, theologically, when we're talking about this teaching, it would be more appropriate than he. So anyway, Yadaber hu moira shehu gadol misichlei, this indicates that he's greater than his understanding. Einu mesigoi, and he doesn't understand him, doesn't grasp him. L'zeh yitzar by tevas ato, and this is how we have the word you, the tevas who, and the word he or it, meaning we have the second person and the third person. So v'chein hu mavar b'shefetal, and also explained there's a sefer called Shefetal, right? B'shar Sifrei Mekubalim and other Kabbalistic volumes. Umavar Yoser b'Mishnas Chasidim Shenikra L'Ors L'Ein Seifu. And also it's taught in the Mishnas Chasidim that it's called, that we call Ein Sof, this concept of God's endless nature. That he is called, the Ein Sof is never called Ato, it's never called you or thou, but rather is always called who, he or it. Also it's explained by Rambam, Maimonides, that we really only know of God's existence, but we do not know of his essence. You could see there, you don't have to explain what that means. Here, this is not the place for that. Now. So you see from everything that's explained above, that the main concept in our worship is inasmuch that the concept of God's endless nature is hidden, and we don't understand it, we don't grasp it. Just so we know that he exists, but we cannot define him. But we know that he exists, and we know that he's the cause of everything that exists. He is what causes everything. He's what causes everything that exists to exist. And God is the one who gives life and existence to everything that could be found with his tremendous energy, his infinite energy. Mitzad midas tuvai. And that is an aspect of his goodness. This is a concept of Rabbi Akiva, who entered into the pardes, the orchard, spiritually, archetypically speaking, as like a Jungian archetype. He entered in peace, and he exited in peace. A very famous Gemara in Chagiga. The other three Tanoim who went up, they were affected. But Rabbi Akiva, he went in peace, and he left in peace. Avol mi, as Chagiga Yadalim base, right? Chagiga 14b. Avol mi asher hitoisai cheres avra. But if someone gets fooled in a different spirit, a different zeitgeist, a different ideology, passes over him. If someone God forbid, claims that he could understand God in some way. That he understands the essence of godliness, maybe blessed. That is a heretic, someone who cuts off the saplings, like the story of Acher, of Rabbi Elisha ben Avuya. V'zeh remes b'dvarav asar v'lo echad asar. This is what's hinted to in the words. This sounds like, to be honest, something that's from the Vizay Heistus from Yenner, the Sefer Yetzirah, that it's 10 and not 11. Shekol mashu mekatzitz b'netiyas v'hu v'shol v'avadin. Or I guess, no, that's what the Acher said. It's 10 and not 11, meaning that he cut off all the saplings, and he is in hell, in perdition. And rak ikr magmaseno al pi mashal. But all we seek out is just to have some kind of a parable that we can compare it to, but not to actually understand God. This is the secret of the red heifer. That someone who sprinkles it, if he's sprinkled on it, he becomes pure, and if he touches it, he's impure. This concept is like we're going to say. Inyan Mazev and Izeh, the one who sprinkles it and the one who had sprinkled on, Hakol Hum Lamata. That all goes from above to below. Lazet Tar, that's pure. Lafisha Voidosel Yudei Nister She'ena Mesiga Canal. That's a concept of someone who, that it represents archetypically a person who doesn't understand God. Aval Hanageya. But the one who touches the ashes, that he imagines that he understands some aspect of God, and he thinks he understands it, that's what's called touching. Then he's impure. Then it's like he's cutting the saplings, like we said before, like the story of Acher, like we said above. So then we know that the real reason for the paraduma is hidden. And we can say the following parable to explain this. When a king commands his subjects to do something, nobody goes and tries to say, oh, I want to know why the king say this. Why is he thinking like this? Raka kol yase, just going to do al pi dibore, according to his words. Kasha yoyma kiuzeh, like he says, this is it. Kain yakum, and that's how it's going to be. You say jump, you say how high, right? Who imagines that he can understand what the king means in all these concepts? This is how we should study Torah. This is how we should do mitzvahs. It's the word of the king. We have no permission to go into the king's thoughts. But rather he said, and it is. He said he heard from the Mizritcher Maggid's Chusig Aleinu, Derech Moshel, the following parable. Asher Nikra Dibur Bechinas Malchus. Why is the concept of speech in the sphere of Malchus? Kichein hu amar al derech hamavar. This is explained like we said. She'ein mi sheyavoy lahar b'machshavas hamelech. There's no one who can go and think, why does the king think this? Rakshu Obar. He speaks, and doing this will come like we said above, according to the parable. And on this side, that it purifies the impure and it defiles the pure when he says holy, or tzaloimer. That's if to say. Shebechinas atahara k'mevoyer bechinas atumul k'bechinas hanegia. We explained the concept of purity and the concept of impurity with touching, or tzaloimer. Kanal mitzad boimer kodesh. All of this is like we said above, on the side of when he says holy, ki kodesh melashon hefresh. This idea of holy means that it's separate, but it's totally separate from the human mind. The human mind cannot understand this other than the way we said it before. And on this side, that's what King Solomon said in the book of Ecclesiastes. I said I sought out wisdom and it was far away from me. Because when he's speaking of wisdom in concerning the red heifer, there's a concept of knowledge. Because the human mind is unable to grasp God's godliness. His name be blessed. That's what Solomon said, that it is far from me. This is the reason why it's hidden from his understanding. The main thing, therefore, is only to teach conceptually, but not to actually understand. Because the human mind can't actually grasp the essence of God. We only are aware of his existence. And this concept itself teaches it. That this is what comes to atone for the sin of the golden calf. Why? Because the reason for the sin of the golden calf is it says, and they saw God. That's in Exodus 24, verse 11. So their mistake was that they thought that they understand and grasp the concept of God's actual essence. And they thought that, and this is how they sinned with the golden calf, and that's what it says in Exodus 32, that they're messed up from this. And parah means like it's revealed more than needs to be revealed. That's what it means when it says they were messed up. It means like they were uncovered, they were naked, and then because the more one adds, you're only taking away. Our sages say, because the truth is, from this side, they come to this mistake and this heresy, this apostasy in God. Yisborach, may his name be blessed. A denial of God. And for this reason, God said we had to make the red heifer. Hello.
Hi.
Hello. And this concept is like it says that there's no thought that can grasp him. But if someone touches this, he is impure. And for this reason, it says a chukah. It says it's a statute, meaning we don't understand it. And like a famous Rashi, which we mentioned yesterday in our tish with the Rebbe Melech, that the Satan and the nations of the world are counting on Israel, saying, what reason is there in it? The fichach amar chukah chakakti. That's why he says it's a statute that I engraved. You have no permission to think about it. This is the concept of the chok. V'zois he etzem giloi. But when it says this, that's the essential concept of revelation. Shel tam hadover, for the reason for the thing. I mean, the answer is, it's not that he's saying you cannot think about it. He's saying this is the answer. Is that you can't think about it. It's something that's so beyond anything that you can think of. That's what it's the answer. That's the actual revelation. Meaning, it's not that we're saying you can't ask this question. It's that the answer is this is an unaskable question. This is the main concept of the revelation. This is the words of the King, who's the God of the life of all worlds, who gives life to everything that lives. And from this, we only know that God exists because of the things that exist. But his actual essence is totally unknowable. Like we said above, but it's not in the sense that we can touch it. Like we said above, this is our main worship. That when he says the King who's totally unique, he's the God who's the life of all the worlds, which means to say, He's the one who causes everything to exist. He's the one who gives his energy and the life force in the world. And these two concepts of the hidden and the present, of the transcendent and the immanent, of thou and it and he, whatever, the second person, the third person. So he said the Zlotchever told him, according to the Rashi we just said, was it that the Satan and the heathens are saying the be'em is called magmas nafsha shel sudden umas oilam limsei eza kitra gal b'nei Israel, that the whole desire of the Satan and the jealous heathens is to find some prosecution against the children of Israel. So therefore, it seems obvious that it's not something that's understandable. To say, well, the reason for the red heifer is because of the sin of the golden calf, meaning they want to bring it up. They want to mention the sin of the golden calf, the mitzvah of the commandment of the red heifer, in order to remind of the sin of the golden calf. Because if they remind the sin of the golden calf, then there'll be a place to make prosecution. And that's why in saying this is a chok, this is a thing that has no reason, no meaning, and you have no permission to think after it, to ask about it. These I'll forget. This is the sin of the golden calf, which should never be remembered anymore. Canal, like we said above. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and we'll see you later.